Hello, Mike. Can you hear me?
Okay, tell me what your name is and all that other information.
I'm Susan Abbott. I have been teaching for 2 years in New Jersey. Before that, I was teaching outdoors in a variety of places. I live now in Concord, New Hampshire, although for the past 6 weeks, I've been a crew member on the Soviet American sail. I heard about the sail by knowing Al Nejma and Nadine Block from the Clearwater, and they sent me some information in the mail, and of course I was interested. I've been sailing since I was little. My dad had a small boat, a 14-footer. And I love the water. I love swimming. I love environmental studies.
How do you find sailing with Soviets?
In college, I studied Russian for a year and went on a study group to the Soviet Union for a couple of months. That was 12 years ago, so I had studied some Russian. I had a little bit of time to brush up on it before I came. Not really very much, not as much as I'd hoped to, of course. But being in the Soviet Union and living with people in their homes, and now living aboard the boat with Soviet crew members and sharing our lives and meals and sleeping in the same bunk room and sharing watches, trying to communicate all the information that's necessary, as well as to find out a little bit about their lives and what they're like as people has been a challenge and has certainly improved my Russian language quite a bit. I think I've learned a lot and grown through this experience.
So what do you think has changed since your visit 12 years ago? Do you think
Oh, wow.
Glasnost has really made a difference?
I think it's too early to tell yet. And we were only in the Soviet Union for about 10 days, so it was a very short vacation. The feeling there was different, though. I noticed it immediately. When I was there before, I was with a college group during the summertime when there are, of course, lots of tourists. But I was aware that at times we were followed, and that at times certain things we had said to people we were staying with, we heard about through other channels later. It was very strange. But there was a feeling of being wary and watchful before, whereas this time I felt like we could almost go anywhere and do anything that we wanted to. We didn't try to get out of the city too much because we were there for such a short time and had plenty to do with our host families in Moscow and Leningrad, so there wasn't that need to travel. I don't know if we would have been able to, in this case, although the people we were staying with said we'd have to get special permission to do that, special visa.
What are you going to do now after the summer?
I'll be part of the friendship tour when we return to the United States. So that will be about 10 days visiting communities on the Eastern Seaboard. Then I'll be beginning a new job. I'll be working in Concord, New Hampshire as an outdoor environmental educator with the school district with kids of all ages. So it's something I've done before, but the job is a little more responsibility and a lot more a wider combination of things that I've done bits and pieces of before. I'll be working with teachers more in developing programs, as well as doing a lot of demonstration teaching with kids, which is mostly what I've done before. I've done a few, teacher training things, but okay.
Do I look in here or I look at you? Sorry. At the camera. I can start now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. My name is Mary Flaherty and I come from Ireland, and I found out about the sale through an American friend who was involved in organising it. I met her on the South American walk last year in the United States.
And what do you do in Ireland?
Oh yeah. I teach Japanese in a university in Dublin, and I'm also a student of psychology.
And have you ever been sailing before?
No, first time.
This is your first sailing time.
Yep.
What do you feel? What do you feel so far?
About sailing?
Yeah.
Oh, it's wonderful.
It's wonderful.
Couldn't be better, especially the port stops.
Have you learned a lot about sailing?
A lot more than I knew before.
What were your goals for being on the sail?
My personal goals. Mike, you didn't say they were going to be hard ones. I guess I wanted to experience. I wanted to give some sort of involvement to peace on a bigger scale. A small involvement.
How does this differ from the Soviet peace walk?
The Soviet American peace walk, I felt touched a lot more people because we were meeting people in small towns in the United States all along the trip.
So you were walking across the United States or across the Soviet Union?
No, across the United States, from Washington D.C. to California last year.
And you walked all the way from Washington D.C. to California?
Well, we had buses too, and we flew a little.
Oh, I see. You flew a little bit.
Just a little from Des Moines
So you walked
to
up
San
and down?
Francisco.
Oh, just a little.
Well, you see, they had a drought there last summer, so we just couldn't go any further across the mid-states. But I think these sorts of peace efforts are important. It really helps.
Do you find it's difficult when you're living with Soviets as far as the language and the cultural differences?
No.
How have you managed to deal with that?
Learn a little Russian. But for me also the Americans are different. So I guess I feel like somewhere in the middle. In Ireland we don't think of the Russians or the Soviets maybe in a negative sense that you might in the United States. Our education would not be so anti-Semitic. They're sort of more Europeans, more Russians, as opposed to the people of the other southern states, southern republics.
Do you find that, what do you feel you're going to be doing after this as far as what is this effect going to have on your teaching? Are you going to teach more about cultural possibilities of collaborating? Or, what are you going to do after this project? What do you feel this is going to take?
I think that when you talk to people about things like this, if you can just change attitudes by your own enthusiasm, then it's worth doing something like this. I first got interested, I wasn't a peace activist or anything until when I lived in Japan. A friend of mine was a bomb victim, a Hiroshima bomb victim, and it was just because of this one person that I personally have done any sort of peace work. So I feel that if I can do something like that, of course it's not as strong as being a bomb victim, but if you can just influence one other person, then it spreads.
So that this person who was a bomb victim, they inspired you to be more involved with activist, peace activism, environmental activism?
Yeah, well, before that, for me, a lot of nuclear, sort of like the arms race and all that, was just like a whole bunch of statistics which didn't mean an awful lot. I mean, I was pretty concerned, but in a very inactive way. But after meeting a human being, like a friend, who was like a victim of something larger than herself, which I would often have thought that I couldn't do anything at all to to change, then I felt more responsible as an individual.
Has life aboard ship been as difficult as you imagined, or how?
Or as easy as I imagined. Yeah, it's.
You're able to get enough things done, work done, and you're participating, even though you had no sailing experience?
Well, you can participate in different ways. Maybe I could help more in the sailing, all right, but I don't want to mess things up. We finished?
I just want to start with your name and what you do in the Soviet Union, where you live. Go ahead.
Да.
And you don't need the translation when he talks.
No.
Then after that, I will translate it to you, right?
Окей. Меня зовут Денисев Аркадий Николаевич. Я родился, родился и живу в Москве. Работаю. Меня зовут Денисев Аркадий Николаевич. Я родился и живу в Москве. Работаю в Институте полупроводниковых материалов, наладчиком электронного оборудования. Увлекаюсь туризмом, водным и парусным спортом. В прошлом году мой приятель рассказал мне о планах парус, советско-американский парус 89. И пригласил меня принять участие в этом мероприятии. Yes.
So you're part of Club for Travels and Peace and
Вы
Environment?
являетесь членом клуба «Спасем мир и природу»?
Да, кандидатствовать на участие в этом мероприятии могли только члены клуба.
Well, only the members of the club Safe Peace and Environment could be the candidates for the participation in this project.
I see. And how were you able to take time off from work in order to
Как
do
вам
this?
удалось отпуск взять с работы?
Это было не совсем легко, однако
Yeah, it wasn't easy.
отпуск за 2 года и несколько дней отгулов, заработанные
Used my vacation for 2 years.
в субботние и воскресные дни.
And plus a few days I worked in Saturdays and Sundays that I was able to add these days.
И позволили мне получить отпуск на 2 месяца.
And it allowed me to have the vacation for 2 months.
Have you had any sailing experience previously to the sail?
У вас был какой-то опыт по парусу раньше, в прошлом?
Только небольшие путешествия по рекам, озерам и водохранилищам
Small trips
на яхтах.
lakes and on the seas, on the yachts.
So the club has some yachts that you've been able to sail on
То есть у
before.
клуба есть какие-то яхты, на которых вам удавалось плавать?
Нет, это не связано с клубом путешествий в защиту мира и природы.
Well,
Это
this activity is not connected with the club Safe Peace and Environment.
спортивные клубы
It's a sport club
наши,
or sport
профсоюзные
clubs,
и ведомственные.
trade union clubs and my enterprise club.
Have you? Let's see. How do you feel this sail will affect Soviet-American relations?
Как вы думаете, как повлияет вот этот парус на советско-американские отношения?
Я не думаю, что только этот проект может что-то изменить серьезно в советско-американских отношениях, но
Well, I don't think that only one such project can make a serious changes in Soviet-American relationship.
если считать, что это только начало,
But if consider it to be the beginning,
и в дальнейшем подобные мероприятия будут расширяться и увеличиваться количественно,
and
то
when in future would be a lot of such sales,
это, безусловно, существенно сблизит наши народы.
so of course it will help to bring our nations together.
И хотелось бы надеяться,
And I would
позволит изменить что-то и в политических отношениях между нашими странами в лучшую сторону.
Do you have any children?
Да, у меня дочь, ей 15 лет.
Well, I have a daughter, she is 15.
Она с нетерпением ждет моего возвращения.
She's very impatient for me to come back home.
And your wife, was she a little nervous about you sailing across the ocean?
Ваша жена, она нервничала, когда вы отправились в это путешествие?
Весьма.
Yeah, she worried a lot.
Was it, do you feel it's been a good experience so far, as
Ну, как вы считаете,
being
это
with America?
хороший опыт для вас, так сказать, вот провести время здесь с американцами на парусе?
Безусловно, это во всех отношениях для меня очень интересно и полезно.
Yeah, it's very interesting
И-
to me and very useful.
И контакт с людьми другого мира,
And the contact with the people from the
непосредственный
outer world,
контакт,
direct contacts
совместная работа,
of the joint work.
с одной стороны, и с другой стороны, это испытание себя в условиях трансокеанского перехода. Трансокеанского.
How are your impressions of Americans different now than what you were told before the trip?
Насколько они изменились по сравнению с тем, что вы знали до этого путешествия?
Изменились впечатления.
Да.
Ну,
Какие сейчас и как
yes, I understand. Thank you. Я не могу сказать, что впечатления изменились, поскольку прежде у меня не было непосредственных контактов с американцами. Однако сейчас
my impressions or opinions changed because before I didn't have direct contacts with Americans.
Однако сейчас у меня сложились достаточно определенные мнения о американцах, по крайней мере о тех, с которыми мы путешествуем.
Nevertheless, right now I have pretty determined or pretty stable opinions about the Americans I'm traveling with now.
Я понимаю, что наши компаньоны не представляют всего разнообразия американского населения.
Well, I understand that the friends or the friends who are here with me on the yacht, they don't represent all the variety of American society.
Однако думаю, что они представляют наиболее интересные для меня круги населения.
But I think that they represent the most interest, at least for me, circles of the society.
То есть это люди неравнодушные, люди, старающиеся сделать что-то хорошее для общества и
People are very active
Like a video of a prison break.
Okay.
And I like talking to normal. Oh, are we rolling here?
Yeah.
Are we rolling tape? Okay. My name is Greg Dukowski. I'm from Crystal Beach, Maryland, and what else you want to know? Sailing experience.
What do you do
Oh.
in Crystal Beach?
Mostly not much of anything anymore. I was employed as an environmental scientist by the state of Delaware, resigned to come on the sail. So now I tell people I'm a freelance writer. Better than telling them I'm unemployed.
Okay.
So what else do you need to know?
How you found out about the Soviet-American sale?
I found out about Soviet-American sale because I happened to be sitting in the same room when the decision was made. The idea was first framed and the decision was made to do it a couple of years ago, September 19th, 1987, in fact, in the main cabin of the Hudson River sloop Clearwater. We were kind of having a discussion of citizen diplomacy. Al was reading a book on citizen diplomacy. Nadine had recently returned from a peace walk in the Soviet Union, and I'm not sure which one of them it was, but somebody suggested, hey, we could charter a tall ship and sail to the Soviet Union. So I said, sure, I'll go. And
So here
I
you
did,
are.
yeah. Of course, Josh Gordon was on board then, and he said it was a harebrained scheme that would never work, and he would never be involved with such a thing.
Any commentary from you, Josh?
I'm not sure I really remember that, Greg, but you know how my memory is, you know. I've just been taking too many drugs. Josh is a serious sailor, and he...
And you're not. You're not a serious sailor.
I'm not a professional sailor. I'm who knows, I may wind up becoming one. My sailing experience is about 10 or 12 years worth, but all inland, mostly in dinghies and small sloops.
And as far as your involvement in the environmental movement, how did that come about?
Well, first involvement really was about 1972 when I was a student at the University of Delaware. Governor Peterson at the time was promoting the Coastal Zone Act, which was actually specifically was designed to prevent a shell refinery from being built in the marshes of the Delaware Bay estuary. So there was a widespread public campaign, door-to-door canvassing, to get the Coastal Zone Act passed to protect Delaware's coast, and that law was passed and continues to be in effect and served as a model for the Federal Coastal Zone Act and for a number of other states. And I'd been involved in political matters before. That was the first really overt involvement I had with the environmental movement. I'd been to Earth Day back in 1970 and so forth.
So your political involvement goes back at least 20 years into the political activism and environmental concerns? Or?
Yeah, my actual political involvement probably goes back to my senior year of high school. I worked on local political campaigns and helped put out an underground newspaper in my high school. I was involved in the opposition to the Vietnam War back in '69 and into the '70s. Eventually wound up going back to college, getting a biology degree, and after a series of other jobs, including working as a biological technician, became an environmental scientist with the state of Delaware. As I said, did that for 4 years until resigning to go on the sail.
Let me see. What are your impressions of the Soviet Union?
There's a whole lot of different sets of impressions that I have. On a personal level, the people I met there were extremely friendly, would do anything for us, and the people I stayed with in particular I really got along with well. Very nice folks, very generous. As far as the country itself, it's a beautiful country. It's in a lot of ways well taken care of. In some other ways, they seem to have some of the same environmental problems that we had maybe 20 years ago in the States, some of which we've resolved, some of which we've made worse since then. As far as the government, I guess I'd been brought up to believe that the government was very strict there and that people were afraid to say anything or do anything about it. If that was ever the case, they're no longer afraid to speak. And they spoke with me quite openly about what they liked and didn't like about the government, the way it worked, the economic situation, food shortages, that type of thing. And if that's a change, I guess that's a healthy change. It seems that the genie of democracy is out of the bottle in the Soviet Union, and no matter what happens to Gorbachev, I don't think that they're going to put it back.
Do you find that that this sail is just the beginning of a movement that's going to be more prevalent in the future? That this is just the beginning of joint U.S.-Soviet ventures of this sort?
I hope so. I think that the more the people in each country get to know about the people the other country, the less likely they are going to believe any kind of line coming out of the government or the corporations about how the Soviet Union is our enemy or how the United States is their enemy. Ultimately, that's going to be reflected in the political process, I think, in a reduction of tensions and hopefully in nuclear disarmament. And
This bottle of pill make temperature, no? Friendship.
We need a cartoon. Cartoon. He needs a. He needs a towel for a turban.
Okay.
All right. All right, my name is Seth Goodwin, and I grew up in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and spent my whole life there. I found out about SAS from Nadine Block and Al Nejma by working on the Clearwater a few years ago as a maid of the month. I was there for 1 month in the summer, and got to know them, and then heard about this project through them.
What do you do in Cambridge?
I was a student. I actually was a student at Trinity College down in Hartford, Connecticut. But I grew up in Cambridge. I went to high school there. And now both my parents live there, so I'm there for the time being.
What other sailing experience have you had besides Clearwater?
Before the Clearwater, I did a maritime studies semester down in Mystic Seaport. And I was there for a semester. And we spent about 2 weeks.
The brochure, right?
Yeah. The brochure. They did a lot of that in my semester when I was there. But we spent 2 weeks in the westward in the Gulf of Mexico doing research in the loop current. And we sailed from St. Petersburg to Miami.
St. Petersburg to Miami. You sailed around the Gulf of Mexico? Or
Yeah.
what?
And just from St. Petersburg down to the tip of Florida
It's a nice
in the
trip,
loop
John.
current. It was good. We did a lot of research. It was mostly was a scientific-oriented trip. We were doing a lot of research.
What kind of scientific stuff have you been doing on this trip?
It's been similar stuff. We've been doing mostly Newstown tows, which is what we did a lot on Westward also. Newstown tows sampling a meter-wide section of the water for 1 mile, probably the top 6 inches or so of the water, trying to find plastics and tars. We've done that the whole way across, from Leningrad to New York, usually one a day.
You've been doing also with the salinity content and things like that?
Yeah, it's been very interesting to follow the temperature and salinity changes too, because that's been indicating the currents as we go along. Coming in the Gulf Stream has been the most significant change of all, as the temperature rose and the salinity also did.
How much did it rise?
It went from about 15 to 21 in the course of a few days. About 21 when we were in the middle of the Gulf Stream.
What is it now?
I think it's dropping a little bit now because we're going in and out of it. We may have been down to 20 this morning or something like that.
What have been the results so far in the Newstown tow? Have you found plastic and tar almost everywhere along the ocean?
Bits and pieces of it. It seems like we found plastic almost everywhere. Tar has come and gone. I think we just got the most tar yesterday, which I suppose would make sense considering stuff is being brought up in the Gulf Stream and all. And the last place we found a lot of tar was also in the North Sea.
Right near the oil rigs.
Yeah. I can't remember, but I don't believe we found a whole lot between Greenland and St. John's. Not nearly as much as here or the North Sea, but plastic.
Where was the highest concentration of plastic?
Plastic, probably, yesterday got a lot, but also when we were about 200 miles off of St. John's, we got a whole lot of plastic too. And that was a day, I think about 4 or 5 days before St. John's, we started seeing plastic in the water all over the place. And
that's the Labrador Sea, that's like the North Atlantic.
Yeah, approaching the Labrador. Right. We saw styrofoam tops float by. We saw.
A very populated area too. It's really strange.
Yeah, I'm not sure where it was all coming from, but I do remember that's where a good deal.
I remember seeing those big chunks.
Yeah, we saw a lot of it. We didn't end up getting that much of the tows, but there was a day in there when we saw a whole lot of plastic for some reason. Bags, big, whole pieces too, which was unusual. Most of the stuff we found has been pieces.
Do you know what's going to happen with this information when we're done with the sale?
I think it's actually going to go to SCA, the people who run Westward, because they're one of the few organizations who's been doing tar and plastic research in the oceans for back about 5 or 10 years, or even more. So it's going to go into their database, which is one of the few as far, that I know of about this, on this subject. So it'll go to them, and they'll use it.
Okay. What do you expect to do after the sale? What do you expect to do after the sale?
One thing I want to do when I get back is to spend some time at home again. College has been kind of 4 years away from my parents and all, and it'd be good to get back in touch with them. So I think I might be in Cambridge for a while. I may be doing some more traveling with a friend of mine across country, if I can. I'd like to do some work with some of the material that's come out of this sale, slides and all, and do some slideshows or something for schools. And I also keep thinking about sailing again, and if I want to sail for a while on the boat, on another boat or something like that, maybe back to Clearwater.
Does this change your perspective on Russians?
The most important thing that I think this trip did, and also a trip to the Soviet Union I took last year, was both of the trips have begun to break down all the stereotypes that the media has presented to us about Soviet culture and Soviet people. And all of that has become much more apparent that the media this trip was much more intense than the last one I was on. The last trip I took was with in-tourist, and we stayed in in-tourist hotels, and we were taken around by in-tourist guides. It was much flatter. It wasn't nearly as interesting as this one, because this time we got to stay in Soviet homes, which is a very unusual thing to do when you travel in that country. So this was a much more important and revealing experience, I think. Nothing really struck me as being brand new, but I felt like I learned a lot more, and I got into Soviet culture a lot more just because we were able to stay in people's homes and be with Soviets 24 hours a day, which didn't happen last time I was there.
Yeah.
It made a big difference in terms of my knowledge about the culture and the people.
Deal with this stuff.
You gotta learn how to deal with this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just tell me your name and what you've been up to.
My name is Warren Byrne. I live in Fairfield, Connecticut. What I do for a living, I have my own consulting business in environmental technology and in planning educational programs. And the way I found out about the sale was through my former employer, Schooner Incorporated, which is a marine environmental education organization, nonprofit out of New Haven, Connecticut, where I was captain of a 66-foot schooner-type school ship. And what I've been up to, well, I was appointed as science officer on this vessel for the transatlantic, and in that job we've been doing Newston tows just about every day, which is a sampling of a...
Yeah, explain, who is Newston?
It's actually Newston, and Newston refers to the top 15 centimeters of the ocean surface. It's a scientific term like benthic, and benthic referring to the bottom layers. So the Newston is, as I understand it, I'm not really a studied scientist in these matters at all. I'm, like I said, more into environmental technology and so on, but from what I understand, Newston is the top 15 centimeters of the water, and this tow is 1 meter wide and sinks down and scoops up the top 15 centimeters, and we do this over the length of a nautical mile, so we know exactly how much surface area of the ocean we've sampled during a given tow. And then we analyze the tow for plastic debris found in the water, tar and related debris found in the water, and also the different life forms that we pick up. But the study that we're doing is a study of the amounts of plastic and tar that can be found in a random sample of the ocean. And surprisingly, or not surprisingly, we've found plastic in every tow that we've done so far, from the Baltic on through the North Sea, across the Atlantic, to all the way to New York. Yesterday we had a tow. We're out here in the Gulf Stream now, about 600 miles east of New York, on about the 40th parallel. And we're out in the Gulf Stream. We picked up yesterday a lot of Sargasso seaweed and all the attendant life forms that are in there. Sargasso fish and crabs, shrimp, pipefish, a lot of really interesting life, but we also picked up quite a bit of plastic and tar, which just is a reflection that there's a lot of traffic across the Gulf Stream that dumps a lot of plastic into the water, shipping traffic.
Where does a lot of this tar come from?
The tar is generally residues from oil spills, whether they're small-scale oil spills that happen on a regular basis with a lot of commercial shipping. Commercial ships often will dump oil up to, I don't know, 1,000 gallons or so as part of a normal discharge, and these types of spills are not recorded generally and happen all the time, as opposed to the bigger spills that we hear about where tankers actually have accidents and collide or go up on reefs like
So you're saying there's
in
a lot of
Valdez.
spills that are just unaccounted for? And,
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. This is true. It's a sad fact, but it's kind of has to do with the design of ships and the fact that in the design of ships for hundreds of years, the men have treated the ocean, or humankind has treated the ocean as a dumping ground where once it's off the ship, it goes away and stays away. In this day and age, we're finding that no, it doesn't go away, it's accumulating, and it's accumulating to the levels now where it's pervasive in oceans all over the world. The Atlantic is quite filled with tar debris from oil spills and also plastic. We pick up quite a bit of plastic every day in the Newston tow, and it is a random sample. It's surprising that a lot of it they're little bits of plastic where the plastic is broken down, but it's pervasive. I could show you samples if you want. It would only take me a second.
I've got samples. I'm going to cut to those.
Okay.
You know, I've R2 and Mr. I saw the stuff that we picked up. Tell me, what kind of, do the Soviets have the same problems in the Baltic, and what kind of, you know, talk about maybe the meeting that you had with that guy, and what kind of eco nets you're trying to work on, or what you're going to work on when you get back?
The Baltic has a lot of serious environmental problems. As I understand it from a lot of the Soviets that I've spoken to, their major problem is release of pathogens into the water from sewage systems and various other sources. I think there are a lot of dangerous chemicals that are being released from industrial sites as well into their rivers. They have a lot of problems with their rivers and estuaries being polluted by chemical toxins, and then what they call virulent diseases showing up in their waters have closed beaches on the Baltic and the Black Seas for the past couple of years and pose a serious threat. They've closed beaches all over the Baltic, which is a very serious problem. We have a lot of the same problems in the States. For instance, on Long Island Sound, where I'm from, we have numerous sewage spills every summer that result in closing of beaches due to pathogens being found in the water. By pathogens, I mean hepatitis, tuberculosis, so on. Any human diseases that find their way into the waste stream through the sewage system can end up in the water. And normally with so-called proper treatment of sewage, these pathogens are killed, usually through chlorination. The chlorination is a whole nother pollution problem that needs to be dealt with.
So when you were in the Soviet Union, you made some contacts with people who are working on similar issues there, and what is going to become of that? Are you planning on trying to establish some networks?
Well, as a matter of fact, this afternoon we're having a seminar in a few minutes on environmental networking, where we'll be working on establishing contacts, ongoing contacts between similar groups working on similar issues and problems. And while I was in Leningrad, I met with a man named Peter Kolesnikov, who heads a citizens environmental group called Delta. And they're concerned with environmental problems of all kinds. But specifically, they were fighting against the building of the dam in Leningrad. I'm not sure exactly what the name for the dam is, but it's known as just the dam. It's what they've done is walled off the whole interior end of the Gulf of Finland, which is the body of water that's off the Baltic, where Leningrad is situated. Leningrad itself is a major estuary system with major rivers flowing into the Gulf of Finland. And what they've done is dam this off. It was a measure taken to try and stop a flooding problem that they had, consistent flooding problem over the past couple of hundred years in Leningrad. But what they've done is essentially walled off part of the ecosystem there, and they're having terrible problems with these human pathogens and bacteria building up, algae problems, eutrophication of the water, and the sediment buildup from all the rivers flowing in there. They've completely disrupted the flow patterns of the water. And essentially what's happening is a huge body of water that they've walled off. The whole, I believe it's the northwestern end of the Bay of Finland is stagnating due to this dam. And it's such a severe problem that Finland, which borders the Gulf of Finland on the other side, has offered to pay all the expenses of destroying the dam just to be rid of it. And it's a major embarrassment to the Soviet system. However, the people who were responsible for building it are still in power and refuse to stop the project. The project is not even complete, and it's causing major problems. And as I understand it, work is still ongoing to complete it with tremendous pressure from citizens groups that are really gaining a lot of momentum in the Soviet Union to destroy it, also from the Finnish government and so on. So that's a big problem.
So you think that it was a successful trip, and that you'll be able to use it to utilize more understanding of world global problems in terms of, that we all have similar problems environmentally, and that we can use our similar solutions. We just kind of network together, and you feel like that was successful and start to lay the roots down for that?
Well, yeah, it's been really interesting that way. For me, I've learned an awful lot about the Soviet perceptions of what environmental problems are, how to deal with them. Their government system being a lot different than ours, they have a different approach generally. But we've talked a lot about the power of citizens groups in applying pressure to get governments to take action, which is very important in the States and is growing in importance over there. My specific focus was to find groups that were focusing on water-related problems. Now, I didn't find those people per se, but I know where to find them now. It was a really good beginning trip to learn about the Soviet Union, to learn about the perceptions, to learn how to operate there, which, as you know, is a process in and of itself. And
just learning how to use the phones.
Right, the phones, the transportation systems, getting through to people. We did visit in Moscow the major water sewage treatment plant. It was an excellent installation, actually, and as I understand it, the foremost sewage treatment plant in the nation, Soviet Union, and that was an impressive operation, really huge. They processed a tremendous amount of water and brought it up to what looked like tertiary quality, although it was hard to compare the different standards between the U.S. and the Soviet Union because they used different ones, but just from the clarity of the water, they were doing an awfully good job. But yeah, there'll be lasting contacts from this trip, certainly, and it's an excellent foundation for building and going further. And my personal feeling is that the U.S. and the Soviet Union share a real special responsibility to take leadership in solving environmental problems as a couple of the world's largest industrial nations and leaders of the Eastern and Western worlds. It's up to us to take the initiative and lead the way for other countries of the world, and that's something that we're doing in some areas and not in others. A major issue is fossil fuel burning. The Soviet Union and the United States are the leading producers of carbon dioxide from fossil fuel burning and contributing to the greenhouse effect in global warming, which is probably the most serious environmental issue today, along with hundreds of others are all combining to create a real crisis situation. And whereas that's gloomy, I feel really encouraged that there is a huge growth and awareness of the environmental situation, and that we really need to act together, pull together as a globe, and do something to solve these problems. I think that it provides a real bright light in the future of international relations, and a shift in focus from nations looking at the world from a narrow prospect of what's in their own self-interest to the nations of the world banding together and looking at the world from the vantage point of what can we do for all of humanity, what's in the best interest of all of humanity, because pollution doesn't respect national boundaries, and as such it'll force us to work together, and that's great.
You're the engineer, you didn't know there was fuel there?
Well, I wasn't sure.
It's all stowed underneath there.
Oh yeah, that is fuel. I thought that was water. I don't know. We store fuel in water containers here.
All right. What's your name?
All right, I'm Mike Atkins. I'm the engineer on Tavega. All right. So, I'm Mike Atkins. I'm the engineer on this trip. I've been the engineer on Tavega for 3 trips altogether, starting in '86 and again in '87 and about half a year in '88. I found out about the SAS through my brother. He was one of the organizers with Deepwater Alliance, and they were short an engineer, so I'm the lucky one.
So you basically have worked before on the Tavega, and it seemed like you were the most logical candidate since your brother set this up.
Yeah, well, they had, I guess, 3 guys in mind, and one of them was able to do the first leg over, and the second guy couldn't make it, so things just kind of worked out that I was the return engineer for the second leg.
What kind of situations have you found yourself in, problems and things that you've had to solve engineering-wise for the ship?
Well, I think the biggest headaches so far have been the generators. They have a will all their own.
Yeah, they already killed my beatbox.
If it's not one thing, it's another. We started out with a few holes in the cooling jacket of our larger generator, and it would constantly overheat. And we tried epoxy, and we tried Elmer's silicone, and just all kinds of stuff. Finally, I yanked the 2 cooling jacket plugs out and hammered in some wooden dowels, and that seems to have solved the problem, at least until we get to New York. The smaller generator seems to run okay, but it just can't handle all the loads that we have on board, so it occasionally overheats. Today, they're both doing something that I can't quite figure out. They just die all together, and
They got a mind of their own.
something is going on. No idea what. Had everybody turn off their power tools, and they still die, so.
What was that you were doing the other night, welding? What was that?
Well, the
the main engine, my good friend, the only one that hasn't had any problems, all of a sudden, one of the nuts on the compressed air intake inlet to start the engine broke, and I didn't think we had any fittings for it in stock. So I figured that maybe a brazing job would hold it together. So out came the gas tools, and we had a semi-success. It held together pretty well, but the nut deformed, and I couldn't hammer it back into the right shape, so I ended up scrapping that. And we were trying to figure out another way of getting it to start. I was thinking of just capping it with a nut, and I ended up rummaging through everything down in Shaft Alley, and I ended up finding another part, luckily, at the last minute, and cranked her up, and we haven't really shut her down other than for swim call yesterday since then.
How have you found working with a Soviet engineer? Has that been a challenge, or have you been able to talk the same language as far as nuts and bolts?
Actually, it's been great. I mean, we both know what to do. And unfortunately, when you're working with someone that you can communicate with very well, you end up gabbing a lot and not getting much done. And, or else, there's some kind of a rivalry to see who can do what faster or more or better. And with Nick and I, it's been perfect. I mean, we just really work in sync together well, and it's just been working out fine. We have or had a schedule of 12 hours each, on and off, and we can communicate the things that were wrong, and we were able to say everything's okay when there weren't any problems. Communication verbally hasn't been a big problem because a lot of technical language is very similar. The words for generators and start, stop, and a bunch of other things are the same. So.
What will you be doing after the sail?
Well, I'm going to school at UC Santa Cruz in California for oceanography, and I'm going to go back to that after a 3-week wind down and get my stuff together in California, and then move down to the camp.
You were interested in aquaculture?
Yeah. Yeah, I've taken all the initial classes at Santa Cruz for biology. And next year I start getting into marine botany and the labs for aquaculture. I'm really interested in dedicating a life to working on the sea and trying to develop genetic strains of land plants that can grow in the water. Ocean farming, something like that. There's a big laboratory in Santa Cruz that's currently working on it, and I'm anxious to get involved in that whole aspect of it when I get back.
What other kinds of exchange did you have in the Soviet Union? I noticed you bodily fluids exchange in Moscow there.
Well, I had an interesting night. After a visit to one of the children's camps in Moscow, I met a Soviet cook. We kind of winked at each other, but we couldn't communicate. And she came out, and we exchanged conversation via translator. And well, she ended up joining us that evening for some entertainment at one of our hosts' house. And we shared a cab back to my apartment after everything was over. And well, about all I can say on film is that it was a really interesting ride. The cab driver, I noticed, lowered the mirror a bit so that he could get full details on everything.
How did your hosts react to that late night entrance?
Well, the hosts that I lived with didn't like it at all. The son of the lady who owned the apartment was really upset. He's 17, and didn't like this girl one bit, didn't appreciate the fact that I was skipping out on them to go and enjoy a little nightlife. And he figured that I was going to be extremely corrupted by this woman. And when I showed up at about 2:30 at her door with her in my arm, it didn't go over very well at all. In fact, he opened up the door and said, "No, no, no," and pointed to her. So she had to leave. But the next morning I made breakfast and everything was okay.
That's good to hear. A happy ending.
Yeah, a happy ending. An international exchange of fluid in Moscow.
Okay.
Okay.
What's your name?
I'm Eliza Garfield. And do you want me to just go?
Sure. Where do you live, Eliza? Go.
Okay. I'm Eliza Garfield, and I'm from Maine and New York. I found out about the Soviet-American sale through a friend who worked on the Clearwater, and also through word of mouth in the schooner world.
So you've had other sailing experience.
Yeah, I work, predominantly I work in sea education on schooners that teach environment or education, history, or just for the experience. I started as a cook in the business, working on a passenger carrying vessel, and immediately fell in love with it. I've been working on ships ever since in Westward, which is a college program. I worked as cook, and ever since I work now as deckhand or mate. I'm hoping for longer-term positions as mate on larger vessels in the near future.
You have a license then?
Yeah, I have a able-bodied seaman's license. I have a 150-ton mate's license and a 100-ton master's license.
So how many years have you been involved in sailing ships?
I've worked on schooners for 4 years, and I've been sailing ever since the second day I was alive.
As far as the sail is concerned, how do you think this what are you doing after the sail is over? You're working on a book?
I would very much like to publish a book. I'm working on a photographic presentation, slides, and also black and white. But a number of the Soviets and Americans are voicing opinions and the desire to write a book, and we're just trying to imagine who and where we might be able to get funding, find a publisher, find an interested audience.
What are you covering in your book as far as?
That's a good question. When originally we'd thought of doing a log, documenting day by day all the elements that went on the ship, and I now tend to think it tends towards more essays, more looking at certain issues, how the Soviet and Americans dealt with them, whether it was women working on the boat or dealing with accidents. What about food, the cooking of food, whether we have meat or sugar only for meals or vegetables, seems to be or kasha, an American-Soviet dichotomy. So right now I'm tending to think a book would be more essays and covering the course of the trip and the weather, some of the sailing aspects. But I'm not so sure that the sail itself is a worthwhile book. I'm not so sure that that's where it would lead right now. I feel that the microcosm is here, and I think it's very subtle, it's very evolutionary. I don't believe that we have created anything. I think it's evolved brilliantly. I think that the evolution of a Soviet American community has been fabulous, the problem I think that has occurred on the boat is a desire to create something and to analyze a little bit too much, denying the experience some of its unique, special, spontaneous qualities. However, the sailing of the ship requires that there be a certain structure, and in some ways I think structure and spontaneity have come to a head, but maybe that's the Soviet American way.
So do you feel that at times there's been friction as far as or between our countries, like how we do things differently, just the process? It's been.
I think process is an American concept. I think that the development of conflict has not been Soviet American. I think it's just been individual. I think every individual comes with a different idea of a community. I think everybody comes with a different idea of food, medicine, and social interaction, and that's what has made this trip unique.
What do you got, besides the book, what else do you plan to do in the future with your sail experience now?
As we speak, I have applications in with a number of sailing sea education programs. I'm hoping to work in sea education for another few years before becoming a part, hopefully, of certain programs, and ultimately I have a dream of running my own international sea education program.
Just one anecdote I wanted to go on. You mentioned at one time you were working on a ship that drifted away because of using clove hitches. Would you care to just elaborate on that a little bit?
It was not a ship. It was an emergency rescue boat down in the Bahamas, and it had 4 clove hitches and an anchor out, and due to a unique situation of hurricane holes, the clove hitches worked their way loose, and the ship broke. The rescue boat broke loose. Most embarrassing moment of my life.
Who tied the knots? That's what I want to know. Who tied those knots?
I tied those knots. As a matter of fact, my boyfriend had tied them once the same way, clove hitches, but I retied them in order to reduce the problem that was occurring, which ultimately I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, and just bolted out of bed, knowing darn well that something was wrong. And when I got down to the dock, the boat was gone. And having no recourse at that point, had to call for help. We were the only 2 people on an island 15 miles from the nearest settlement, so we had to call for help to rescue the boat.
Oh, that's interesting. Right. So what's your family background in sailing and boating? Your mother?
Well, my parents were both professionals in New York, my mother being a doctor, my father a management consultant, and when they got me off to college, they decided to go into semi-retirement down in the Bahamas, where they work. My mother's a doctor for 3 island clinics, and they also do emergency work, often water-related, and my father's her assistant. And I work with them once a year or so. I will be down in the Bahamas, and the nature of the business is that we all hop in the boat and go do whatever we can do for wrecks or
This was
whatever.
the boat that drifted away late one morning.
Yes, my parents' bread and butter was what I proceeded to try to wreck.
Did the boat ever become salvaged?
Yeah, it rode along a coral reef, and the anchor kept on hooking as it got out of a channel where it was headed for some real danger. We decided not to swim for it and called for help, and the help was able to get it just before it went out the channel and bring it back in. It only had minor damage, although it could have been a disaster.
Mental damage.
serious mental damage. Yep.
What's your name?
Alyssa.
Alyssa what?
Nothing else.
What's your last name, Alyssa?
Swan.
Uh-huh. And how old are you?
4.
4? Ha. Why are you acting so sassy? How did you find out about the sail?
I don't know.
From your dad?
Yeah.
So your dad said, "Do you want to go sailing?" And you said, "Yeah."
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Have you been sailing before?
No.
Yes, you have. Your father told me you went across the Atlantic. This is your third time across the Atlantic. Are you sure now? Are you sure you never been sailing? Uh-huh. Yeah. So how did you like Russia? Did you meet any good Russian friends there? No, are you just playing? You're just playing silly. You're just playing silly, aren't you?
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, baby.
Whenever you're ready.
All right. Okay, go for it.
My name is Dennis Pitts. I am a member of the Soviet American Sail 1989, and I work in New York City, where I have lived for about the past 10 years as a marketing management consultant. And this trip is very important to me on many different levels, primarily a business level, because there's many opportunities that exist in the Soviet Union now that didn't exist a number of years ago. And besides the interest in world peace, I see the future of U.S.-Soviet relations as being an economic one of tremendous potential growth.
Did you see anything that indicators of that growth while you were there that showed some of the potential alleys where there's going to be that growth that you mentioned?
Well, the Soviet Union has been such a closed economy for the past 70 years. There's been very little opportunity for the introduction of, Western-style market economies. Advertising doesn't exist, for instance. Marketing is a trade that really doesn't exist anywhere in the Soviet Union. They don't have textbooks. They don't teach marketing or any type of business management as we know it. So the field is completely wide open, and the fact that they're beginning to look to the West, and particularly to the United States, for new opportunities to develop their economy, it opens a door for us that we've never had before. So it's hard to pick a specific area where they are beginning to change. They're changing at every level. So it's our responsibility to a great extent as business people to go in and look for the opportunities and help them develop.
So in particular, you're saying that their marketing edge is just non-existent, and that's something that is wide open in terms of marketing, just products?
Well, in the Russian language, the word marketing doesn't exist. They've had to adapt the Western word, marketing. Not, they have no comparable term of their own. They don't know anything about how to sell a product. You go into their grocery stores, they have no packaging. It's butter is butter. It's all no-name basics.
In some ways, that could be advantageous too, in terms of the amount that we spend on our advertising industry seems to be sometimes obsessive. I mean, I know from my own experiences. I mean, do you find that is something that's positive, a positive move for the Soviet Union? Do you feel they feel it's positive?
Well, advertising and marketing is a prime component of the competitive marketplace, and in order to attract customers to sell your product or to buy your product, you have to be able to tell them about the product, and that's what advertising and marketing is all about.
What are your plans after seeing the Soviet Union as far as marketing and these areas that you discussed?
Well,
for
the last year or so, I've been looking for new opportunities for business, international business, and I am more keenly interested now in the Soviet Union than I have been. I've made many more contacts on this trip, crew members as well as the host families in the Soviet Union, and I'm going to pursue them. I fully expect to maintain the contacts that I've made on various levels, some with a language program, some with some business dealings in terms of products, and I hope in the spring to be able to return for an extended stay in the Soviet Union.
Do you think that the introduction of more of a capitalist sort of ideology will also help to make a sort of more peaceful ideology, instead of keeping a closed economy, it sort of dictates a closed outlook on the world? And you think that is helping the situation between our two countries?
Well, personally, I feel that the issues of trade and travel are, strongly linked with, the furthering of the peace issue. If we have more exchange between people and we're more interdependent economically, there's going to be less of a need or desire on any propaganda or governmental level to disrupt relations. I mean, the more ties we can build economically and socially, the less chance there are of conflicts arising.
What kind of sailing experience have you had before this?
This is my first major sailing experience.
Really?
Yes, I've never been on a big boat before.
But you had some smaller ship experience, yachts?
I've capsized a few dinghies in lakes and streams.
A few sunfish.
Right.
Oh, that's pretty amazing, because you seem to see you crawling around on the boom and stuff.
I like a challenge. I like an adventure. And this has been that for sure.
So, if we do this again, do you think you'll be one of the crew members?
I'll be one of the directors.
You don't know if you want to do the sailing end of it.
Oh, definitely. But I would make some changes in the programming. This was done on a shoestring budget, and it's amazing that what has been done so far to make this all happen. But I think a lot more planning, a lot more money needs to go into the project to make it come off the way it should.
Yeah, so you basically feel that the structure just needs a little bit more cash flow to make things flow better.
This effort was done on a totally grassroots level from the American side, and it's an incredible job that's been done. Hundreds of people contributed dozens and dozens of hours, and many companies donated many products to make this all happen. And that's hard to duplicate. You need money to do these sorts of things.
Yeah. So what would be the purpose then if you had organized this in the future? Do you think it wasn't around a grassroots effort, but would you try to do it as a corporate sponsored thing?
Well, I think that involving the public in general is one of our primary goals, because the teaching and educating people about U.S.-Soviet relations and to increase the understanding that we must have between peoples, you need to reach out to people. So the grassroots effort is very important, but at the same time you need some basic capital funding as seed money to make the entire operation run more smoothly. You need a paid staff. We had a 100% volunteer organization, and we need a photocopy machine. We need a facsimile machine. We need typewriters. We need receptionists. We need telephones, and that was all done on the kindness of individuals.
Off time.
Yeah. Many people I took off, 3 months before the sale began this year to devote all of my time to help out to make sure this would happen. And I can't afford to do that again, and not too many people can do that.
Many people can. I know a lot of people are burned out by doing it.
Yeah, many people.
It's pretty amazing. I mean, we're here, we're almost back, and I think that's good. All right. Any other?
The question again.
Yeah. Well, what do you feel about the program structure? What kind of changes would you make, or what compliments do you have of the structure?
Well, the basic structure of the Soviet American sale in 1989 was organized by one or two American, individuals under the umbrella organization of the Deepwater Alliance. And I think that that particular umbrella organization needs to take a stronger role in the direction of the program and setting longer-term goals. In order to achieve corporate sponsorship, you need a long-term program, an agenda in order to attract the type of corporate dollars that are going to be needed to fund an operation like this again. So there needs to be a paid director there needs to be full-time staff, and then you can set goals. And on the Soviet side, you need a comparable organization with comparable goals, and there needs to be a tremendous amount of communication that happens. And in the past year with this program, it was minimal communication based on the expense of that communication. And it was also the first time.
Which is detrimental, because the more communication you have, the more you can raise, too. The more capital can be raised.
Of course.
For the program. Yeah. Okay. As far as on shipboard, have you been able to adapt, since you've never had much sailing experience, have you been able to adapt to pretty well to the sailing life?
Well, sailing life has not been that difficult. We've had some stormy weather, which has been a challenge, and being several feet underneath the bowsprit, covered with water one morning, was rather a hair-raising experience. But other than that, managing lines and furling sails has not been a tremendous challenge. It's been new, but I think I've managed that fairly easily. I think the watch schedule is the most difficult thing to get used to, because you don't have time to stay up and party every night.
Those 5 a.m. doldrums.
That's right. You've
3
got
to 7 watch.
But it's excellent discipline, because you get into a routine, and it's a way of life that easily maintains itself. So at times it's a little trying, but I think overall it works out.
Okay.
Just melt the edges. Melt the edges, make a nice patch.
Big patch.
And effect. I think.
Do I stitch in through this?
Yeah, you can stitch through that, yeah.
Or just glue on this edge?
I think because of where it is, you're going to have to stitch it out. Can you just glue it? Well, yeah, both edges. Yeah.
Stitch this together
Uh-huh. So excuse me for my bad English, but I suppose you'll understand me.
I need to get your name again.
Yes, my name is Yuri Rost. I am a columnist of a weekly newspaper, Литературная газета, very large, with daily circulation more than 6 million. So I writer and photograph. I make picture only for my letters and write some books. And I'm very happy that I'm a member of team Tivega. So I'm not prepared for this team because it was an occasion. Yeah. One of the member of our team, Artyom Soloveitchik, invited me, and I left my old business in Moscow, and now I'm here. So
are you here doing as an official photographer for the paper, or how are you?
So I'm not a photographer at all. I'm a columnist, but I make picture, and I want to make picture and write letter about this trip. Now I send it to Moscow. One report, and I hope that it will be print till our return to New York. So, as it seems to me, the main in this trip meeting with American people and my American friends. Very many people on Tevega became my close friend, and some Russian too. It's not difference for me, nation of people, because as it seems to me, it's not main. The United States was empty country before in first my trip to US, but then I have now I have plenty of friends and in different states, and I like United States. I saw United States by their eyes and hear by their ears, and I have the same, sometimes the same sense about some events in United States. And country, your country became close to me after my friendship with American. So I'm not political journalist. I'm not diplomat. Yes, diplomat. I'm only one member of human family, and I feel it. And if I love some people, I love this country, and it's a great. It makes me great hope that this public diplomacy very good thing. So it maybe it will be interesting that in my childhood after the Second War, I wanted to be an American man. Yes, I don't want to live in America, but during the Second War, we in Russia and in Soviet Union received plenty of American presents with some foods like bacon, jam, egg powder or egg flour, I don't know. And from my childhood, I know about America that it's щедро. I don't know. Maybe you translate it. Щедро, and it's kindness, and rich country with good people. And then at first, I know all American cars, of course, because like children, it was very interesting. The best car of this Second War, the Studebaker, you see?
Studebaker.
Yeah, 2 wheels, 6 wheels drive, yeah, all Studebaker, and Ford 6 and Dodge 3/4, and Willys, of course, Mack. You know, yes, Mack trucks, yeah, Chevrolet, and so on. And all these cars I know, and I remember, like American cars, like the one of the
California is the best place for those
Yeah.
old cars. I'm sure you
Yeah.
saw a lot of good old cars.
But it was not cabriolet. It was tracks and lorry, yeah, грузовики. It was heavy cars.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, they don't make
for war, and the one of the great weapon, Russian weapon of the Second War, rockets, Katyusha. They surrounded not on the Soviet car, but only on the Studebaker. So, and first I was in United States in 1974 during World Exhibition in Spokane. You see?
Yeah, Washington.
State Washington. Yeah. It was first meeting, and so.
Since then, you've seen changes in America. Since then, you've been back a couple times.
2 times. Last time I was last year by invitation of Association of Young Political Leaders. I'm not young, so young, not political leader, but I was in the United States in Steamboat Springs, and it was wonderful time and wonderful meeting, and plenty of friends. And so I wanted to make my exhibition in the United States, and maybe in a time I'll do it.
Have you had any sailing experience previous to this journey?
No, never.
Never been
It's
sailing?
the first time. I'm first time on the sailing boat.
Yeah.
Yes, in my life. But I like to test myself. And I was in different trips. Yes.
Has it been trudno?
Trudno? No. No. Sometimes yes, of course. But to my pleasure, I have no seasick. So.
No, seasick.
Seasick, yeah. So.
That's good.
We're talking about briefing, tying the points before we put it on the spool, and then we put it on the spool, and attach the glue and the tack, and then tie the screw line out. Серега смотрит. Сергей.
Okay? Okay. Maggie Clement, and I'm from a small town in Michigan called Cassopolis. And I am working right now in a pediatrician's office for 3 pediatricians. And I also work part-time in a department store. And
What do you do in the department store?
I work in the sheets, towels, and pillow department.
Oh, right.
Yes.
That's why we
Ask me anything you want to know about linen.
clean.
That's right, that's right. And I've been sailing off and on since 1984, working in the galley as assistant cook and worked my way up to head cook. I've worked in Maine. I worked in Maine on a schooner on the Victory Chimes for 2 summers. And then I worked on Tobago with watermark program in the Caribbean and in Europe, Mediterranean, and I worked as cook. on the boat then. What else would you like to know?
How did you find out about the Soviet American sale?
Another person, actually Tom, that is on the sale, that had worked for Watermark, knew about it and sent me the application, and so that's how I got going on it. I knew it was going to be on Tevega. I thought, this is it. This is it. Yeah. And this is the first time I've been up working on deck. You know, I've been down in the galley before, so this is a new experience and a real treat.
Well, you seem like you've had quite a bit of experience. You seem to know what you're doing.
Well, somewhat, but you know, usually I'm.
What did you feel about what were your impressions of the Soviet Union compared to what you normally used to seeing, or what you've been told, or what you're...
Well, I was there in September of last year also. Yeah, I was participated in the the Volga River Peace Cruise. And there were about 200 of us, Soviets, Americans, and Western Europeans. And that was really good also. It was with the same group for 10 days on the boat. So you really got to, you know, talk to the people. Most of the people spoke English. You got a chance to really talk to them. And there we weren't standing watches, so you got to talk to them, you know. I mean, it was like you could speak to all different groups. It wasn't like this group for your 6-hour watch and this group for 4 hours or whatever.
So that's been a difficulty. You found that the watches have been made it difficult to really get to know everybody on board because we have a bunch.
Somewhat, yeah. Yeah, you know, people you'd like to talk to sometimes are sleeping, or it's hard maybe to get a translator sometimes to talk to some of them. And you want to give the translators a break.
Have things changed any since your last trip to the Soviet Union? Did you see anything that you noticed to be different?
I think one thing is you're able to stay in their homes. When we were there before, when we were in Moscow and Leningrad, we stayed in these huge tourist hotels. And to be able to stay in a home, you had to pretty much, you know, you had to get an invitation, you had to know exactly where you were going to stay, who you're going to stay with, how long you're going to stay there. Whereas now I think it's a bit easier. I mean, we were pretty, you know, I mean, there were certain people that, you know, there were just groups of people that came, and, you know, you went off with any of them to stay in their home. And I think it's a lot easier, opening up a lot more, even in the short time, you know.
What are your plans to do now after the sale, I suppose? Any kinds of, you gonna go back to sheets and linens, or?
Yeah, well, I do that a few hours a week. Yeah, and I go back to the pediatrician's office.
In Michigan?
Yes. And I'll do that for a while. I don't know how long yet, because I really enjoy the sailing life, but it's nice to go back and be with friends and family there too.
Oh yeah, I know Michigan.
Yeah, yeah.
You see it? Okay. Mike, can you get out the next chart? The lower. Sure. Okay.
New York. Mike. Emily! Emily!
Emily! Emily! Emily! Emily!
Okay, lower the mast, Dennis. Lower the mast.
now, we've got to start backing. We'll come back with the wind. What you don't want is the anchor to go down and pile a chain.
What do you got there, Greg? One shot?
Yeah.
We did it.
Give me him up.
There's only one problem. Ocean is over. Don't cry. Resign.
They live in small dark spaces all the time.
Light mouse? Can you jam him in there a little bit so he doesn't blow, of course?
Give me a piece of...
Yes. Come on. You are standing like here. Yeah, look.
All the mates! Hey, Albert! Albert! We don't have to advertise. Hey, Albert! Albert! Come here!
All right, Sea-Watch, come over here.
They get their watch together.
Do it again. Sea-Watch.
Oh, I got it now. I don't know what happened.
Very much love to school, bro.
I was on this watch.
Get in there, Josh.
We gotta get a picture with him.
Hey, watch.
Hey,
He must be dying under here.
All right, Skipper. All right, Skipper.
Okay, as Manhattan's behind. Put him out.
What a disgusting geniuses, artists.
Come on, Atkins.
Get in there.
I understand.
Get in there.
Andre! He's in dry stores, I think.
Andrei Vartioke.
Is he in dry stores?
Greg.
We need
is she? Andre, yeah, he's in the dry storage.
Андрей!
Андрей, Алиса и доктора нету.
Доктор не придет, он промывает рану.
Here's Andre here.
Андрей! Алиса!
Давай, иди. Бездельники, давай.
Juggle.
Hey, Emma, the kids are gone.
Yeah.
Emma! Alisa!
Алиса.
Nice to. It's going to be really hard because you don't have much to work with. You could appreciate all the help.
Kasha.
Yeah, it is.
If everybody can listen for a minute again. During the course of the day, as people are packing, remember that Monday morning when you leave the ship, you can't leave everything. Everything of your own personal gear has to go. So while you're packing, it's important to remember that. And really, I think one way that it might be done is to have one bag of gear that you will not need during a friendship tour that can get stowed in the bus and forgotten about for the week, and one bag that you'll live out of for the week of the friendship tour.
Very nice. Try to record smells.
Oh, you can smell that meat, right?
Yeah, I got 43 other people here just waiting to come to the big party over there.
Okay, we'll see it.
A lot of people over here right now?
No, not too many of us. We're just getting ready to get underway, so we got some work to do too. So I guess we'll be waiting for you tomorrow.
Okay, well, I think we're going to be sailing around sometime. We're supposed to be in at 2, and we're supposed to be sailing around the harbor a little bit before we come in. So I don't know if you guys have a 12:30 sail or something. That'd be nice if we can hang out for a little bit.
Great, okay. We'll see you.
Okay, Tay Vega out.
up here, and also why you have not called her yet. And the question about the leaders is one per person. Copy that?
Yeah, we decided, who am I speaking to? Middle of the lunch, over?
Yeah, roger that, Captain. Looking right at you.
Yeah, we decided to come up here because of the weather. Expected a cold front to go through and wanted to be up here before then. And we actually had a call into you folks and wanted to determine what time Customs and Immigration can come out tomorrow before we call the meeting. I told her yesterday I would call her by 3:30, and that's still what I plan to do. Over.
Yeah, roger that. She was expecting a call. She said she might get everything bumped up to 10 o'clock even, Cap. Is the Coast Guard boarding you now or something?
No, negative. I'm still trying to talk to them. I haven't got them on the channel they want, so I might actually switch to this channel. Do you want to talk to the Coast Guard? They want
So what's this? The
08.
Is the Coast Guard on 08?
He just said to stand
Coast
by.
Guard is. He said to stand by?
He just yelled over to me, stand by and 08.
Right, sir. Stand by. Group New York will get hold of you on this channel. How copy you?
I understand. They'll get a hold of us on 08. We'll stand by on 08.
Roger that. Thank you much.
Roll anything. We know the harbor pretty well. We just came in and anchored, so they may have something to say about our spot here. We'll see.
Yeah, they're probably worried about the swing. All right, I'll let you talk to the group yourself, and if you need anything, you just give us a holler.
You know, I wondered if you knew anything about the alcohol and the duty-free amounts and all. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, 1 liter per person. 1 liter per person.
All right, yeah, that's not okay. Thanks a lot. Well, we'll stand by 08 here until we talk to our
Yeah, roger that. Hey, take care of yourself. Have a nice one.
Oh, thanks a lot.
Yeah, it looks pretty sharp. We're going to have to do something about fendering for tomorrow, so that way we don't get you all blacked up there, Roger.
All right. Well, we got some fenders here too. We'll get them inflated. We'll get them inflated ahead of time before you get here.
Yeah, good to go. I'll probably throw some over the fenders, so way I don't whack you up. All right, T Vega, back on 6. Stand by 8 for them.
So?
I don't think he wants to be interrupted.
Oh, listen, you guys coming by? You coming? You're gonna ride by us? What?
Look out your front window and you can see us.
No, I mean close by. You know, everybody in this boat knows I work in this boat, and they want to see you guys. I mean, they're close by.
See the petrol?
I'm not interested in petrol. I have a question. Al is wondering if Don knows where Clearwater is. Okay,
Ты можешь без телефона поговорить.
All right!
Hey, Don!
Clearwater tonight. Are you guys coming close by? You know you're gonna tell me something. They're coming tonight, Al. They'll be in the harbor tonight.
Time to wake up, everybody. Time to wake up. Today's the day.
Wake up!
Wake up, everybody. Let's gather around. New York is here. It's time to party down. Good shape.
Mike,
You look in good shape, Artur. Look at that smile.
I want to know how Maggie looks. That's what I'm worried about.
Maggie? Well, let's find out. Let's get Kevin.
Rick, I would have loved the eating coffee on the red meat.
Comes a jibe. Liza! It's a beautiful day! Wake up and smell the coffee! Yeah, wake up! Woo! It's time to wake up. Get up! Get up! Get up! Wow! It's a beautiful day! Wake up, smell the coffee! Ooh!
Hi, Gerhard. Where are we anyway? Thanks.
I love cameras in my face earlier today. You look great.
Thanks, and so do you.
Street, hear that New York sound.
I hate turkey New York.
Look up on the deck. It looks like quite a mess. So let's get up there and make it look like we confess that we are the Te Vega. We are the Te Vega. Доброе утро. Ah, Mary's up.
Ready?
Uh-huh. Доброе утро, доброе утро. Доброе утро.
The premise around here is unreal.
Доброе утро. It's time to доброе утро.
I feel great. Oh, there's plenty of coffee. There's plenty of fucking coffee for you, son. There's some rum, too.
Доброе утро, доброе утро. Доброе утро, little Emily. Доброе утро.
up. Got an awful lot of bandage here. Some comes up on not like the arm.
Yes, not sure. Yeah, he's got plenty of places. Сказали, не видно из-за меня сюда. Make it down real fast. Or down easy. That's right,